So our next speakers are Saadia Morse and Marwa El-Khodairy, Awasha Atiega, and excuse me if I say your names wrong, please, excuse me. They will be speaking to us today about frequent grammatical errors in the light of negative language transfer and error analysis. And as usual, we'll have 20 minutes and 5 minutes for questions. The floor to you, and welcome to you all.
Thank you very much for this nice introduction, and thank you very much for having us today. I will start by sharing my screen. I don't know if you can see it now. Can you see my screen now?
Yes, we can see it now. Thank you, Marwa.
Yeah, thank you. The three of us, me, Awasha Atiega, and Saadia Morse, we have worked on this research, which obviously talks about challenges facing TAFL learners with spoken Arabic. Without further ado, let me start the presentation. I'll start first with an outline of the background, how we got interested in the study. I'll move on to explaining our methodology, which starts with quantitative and moved on to qualitative analysis. We'll share the quantitative and qualitative findings. Then we move on to some recommendations based on our experiences and as teachers, and then we will conclude, hopefully in 20 minutes. First of all, regarding the background, the three of us have been teaching for years Arabic as a foreign language in University of Central Lancashire. We have, of course, seen the difficulties of learning Arabic as a second language regarding, of course, the four aspects of language: reading, speaking, listening, and reading. But as we were doing this research, we were also faced with the difficulties in the lack of literature, and especially in corpus linguistics, using corpus linguistics in Arabic, and a lot of analysis about the difficulties facing students and analysis of these difficulties. So for the scope of this study, we have decided to limit ourselves to studying only one aspect, which is the common grammatical errors. Of course, there are many aspects that have been discussed throughout the conference and will be also discussed later on, but we have limited ourselves to the common grammatical errors for the scope of this study. So I'll start with the methodology that we have employed in our research. First of all, we started with the data collection. So we have gathered oral exams of elective and undergrad students, 33 elective and undergrad students oral exams, which all in all constituted 3 hours and 33 minutes. We have transcribed our data, so they ended up as 5,212 words. We used corpus linguistics to analyze this corpus of 5,212 words that we have created ourselves, and we analyze it using corpus linguistics tool LancsBox. We have decided, after initial analysis of the data, to focus only on 3 aspects in order to be more specific. The 3 aspects were detached personal pronouns, prepositions, and the definite article, the use of the definite article L by the students. We have decided on these specific errors after an overall analysis, initial analysis of the data, like going while transcribing. We have noticed that these are the most common mistakes. So after conducting quantitative analysis of these data, we moved on to qualitative analysis of the same corpus that we have created using the error analysis theory, and we will end our presentations with some recommendations and suggestions. So let's move on to the findings of the corpus linguistics data. For the corpus linguistics, of course, it was very brave of us to go into corpus linguistics Arabic because it's a very new field and a lot of research needed in this area. So we have started with detached personal pronouns. We're searching for a specific detached personal pronouns like ana, nahnu, first person, second person pronouns, anta, anti, third person pronouns as well, huwa, wa hiya, wa huma, wa hum, wa hun. And the results were that we find that the first person ana is used more frequently in the beginner's level than the intermediate level. So this was 93 times versus 16 times in advanced level. This could be interpreted due to, for example, the subject-verb agreement with ana is much easier than with more other, like the dual form al-muthanna or istikhdam al-jama'. It's more difficult for the students to process, except in the advanced level. The second one was that we found that huwa wa hiya were used 78 times overall in the corpus, but there were lots of wrong uses of huwa and hiya. Specifically, for example, I have examples here. أمي هي مدرسة في مدرسة محلية. And in this case, هي substitutes for the verb to be in the present form, which is, it should be non-existent in Arabic, and this will be analyzed further using qualitative analysis and theoretical analysis in the next few slides. The pronouns أنتما وأنتن وأنتم were used 0 times in the corpus, and this could be explained due to the dual form اللي هو استخدام المثنى اللي هو which is in Arabic and it's non-existent in English. So again, it's very difficult for the students to use them comfortably in the spoken language. أنت was used 7 times, and نحن was used only 3 times, and all of them were correct uses. As for the use of prepositions, we found that the most common prepositions used were في, من, إلى, على, and عن. I used the keyword in context tool to search for these words in the corpus that we've created, and we found that there were some uses that were correct and some uses that were wrong, like, for example, الثقافة مختلف من بريطانيا. Again, this will be these kind of errors will be analyzed theoretically in the qualitative analysis later on in a few slides. And what you see here is a screenshot from how the program looks like. So I search for one word, it gives me the word as a keyword, and it shows me the word in context. So I see the wrong use and I filter the wrong from the correct uses. The last thing we searched for was the definite article el, and the uses of this definite article. Of course, it's very frequent, so I found 950 results. And by checking them manually, I found only 20 of them that were used incorrectly. By looking at these 20 examples, they were gathered and studied with regards to the relation to the negative language transfer. What you see here again is another screenshot of the word el and its use in the corpus. And what you see here again, because the Lanxbox was designed to analyze English data rather than Arabic data, so that's why they all, it's a bit too small, you cannot read it, but for me, I'll tell you that العربي هنا مكتوب من الشمال لليمين, so I had to read it backwards because the program, this is how it works. So it's not designed for Arabic data, but it kind of, it's still under improvement in order to accommodate all the differences between Arabic and English. Of course, there were some kind of errors that were non-searchable errors, either because of the nature of the corpus or because of the limitations of the program. So there was, of course, omission of preposition, which was also frequent error by the students. That was an unsearchable because it was non-existent in the corpus. They should exist, but they shouldn't. So it's the only thing that you can see by analyzing the data qualitatively. And also the omission of the definite article, which is again another error that you could also see very frequently in the next few slides when you analyze the data qualitatively. The subject-verb agreement was also non-searchable, although it should be, but it was non-searchable because the program was not able to identify the verbs of Arabic. So it needs a lot of improvement. So it could identify English verbs, it could identify verbs in other languages, but it couldn't identify Arabic verbs because of a lot of development that needs to be done to the program. So the subject-verb agreement and noun-adjective agreement, they were researchable. They were searchable in English language, but they were not searchable in Arabic because of limitations of the software. And this is something that we could talk about later on, for example, as recommendations that software, the programs that were able to analyze Arabic data needs lots of improvement. And now I will leave you with my colleague Awasha to take you through the qualitative analysis and the theoretical theories that we used for the qualitative analysis.
Thanks, Marwa. Hello, everyone. Now I will talk you through the framework we have employed in this study to analyze the error patterns made by those students. It's the error analysis framework. Error analysis is a methodological framework extensively used in previous studies to highlight errors committed by second language learners from different backgrounds, to provide justifications or explanations behind committing these errors. Error analysis is a developmental alternative to the traditional approach, the contrastive analysis. Contrastive analysis attributes most errors in second language acquisition to L1 interference only and describes them as a result of differences between L1 and L2. It also focuses on the comparison between the linguistic systems of L1 and L2 to find solutions to second language problems. Error analysis, on the other hand, provides many other types of causes. The following are the causes which seem relevant to the errors identified in our study. The first one is negative language transfer, which was originally proposed in the contrastive approach. It's regarded as one of the main causes of students' errors. It's postulated that due to the typological differences between the target language and the first language tends to influence learners' L1 performance. Over generalizations of rules, this has been given as an explanation of errors caused by extension of some of the target language rules to inappropriate contexts. Simplifications of rules are related to errors of learners resulting from producing simpler linguistic rules than those existing in the target language. Now let's look at some of the data gathered for this study and see how this all has been utilized. All the grammatical errors committed by all the participants have been classified into the following categories and subcategories: preposition errors, the definite article errors, errors of noun adjective agreement, errors of subject verb agreement, and an addition of what substitutes the verb to be. So first, let's look at the first type of errors related to prepositions. Marwa, the following slide, please.
Okay.
أبي طويلا ونحيف مع عيون بنية وشعر أسود. As we can see here, there is an additional preposition مع that has been misused by this student. In order to discover what causes this error, a comparison between Arabic and English was made, and interestingly, we have found that this deviant pattern has an equivalent in English. This can be shown in the corresponding English example. My father is tall and skinny with brown eyes and black hair, where the corresponding word for with is ma'a. Based on this contrast, the native language seems to be the main cause for such an error. Similarly, with the following type of errors, omission of prepositions. يحتفل الناس ولادة يوسف في December. The student here has misused the preposition be. Once again, if we look at the English translation of this example, people celebrate the birth of Jesus in December. There is no preposition after the verb celebrate. It becomes clearer that this student seemed to borrow this pattern from English, and it's highly likely that English is the responsible source for this error as well. Turning now to talk about errors related to the definite article L. We all know that in Arabic we have to use L with some generic nouns such as shay. This puts Arabic in contrast to English, where generic nouns do not take the definite article the. The word shay was therefore used by this student without the definite article, as in the previous slides. One can conclude that L1 is the responsible source for this error. Okay, following slide, Marwa, please. As we all know that we extensively use the definite article in the Arabic language, but despite this extensive use, still in Arabic, some proper nouns such as Palestine, and when nouns appear in some constructions such as the Idafa constructions, as in Duwal al-Khalij, we don't use the definite article. But these words have been used with the definite article by one of these students, as you can see in the example in front of you. Both examples seem to be cases of overgeneralizations of rules, where the student tried to apply this generalization inappropriately.
I hate to interrupt you, but we have less than 5 minutes to close. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. In Arabic, adjectives must agree with their head nouns in terms of definiteness, number, gender, and case. But as we all know, when the head noun is non-human feminine, the adjective following it takes a singular form. The misuse of this pattern in the example al-muharrikat al-ra'isi appears to be a case of a simplification of this rule and dismissing this exception in Arabic. With regard to errors relating, Marwa, the following slide, please, related to subject-verb agreement, the student here used the plural form of the verb yaskununa with the dual subject ummi wa abi. Once again, there is likelihood that this is a case of simplifying the rules and a consequence of L1 interference. Last but not least, we have also found in the data that some personal pronouns such as huwa, as in this example on the screen, appear to substitute the verb to be in English, as in the example in here. Once again, that seems to be a case of L1 interference. Now I will leave you with Saadia, who will talk you through some recommendations in this regard. Thanks for listening.
Thanks very much. I hope you can all hear me fine. I'm going to talk briefly about the importance of teaching grammar in context. I know I'm left with only 4 minutes, but I try to be brief. If you can read one of our students' comments in his mid-year feedback questionnaire for this year, what he's saying is that step-by-step construction of complete paragraphs has never been taught, only sentences using the specific grammar rule that is being taught. What the statement says that some of us still tend to teach grammar as isolated items of language. And I will reiterate what Victoria mentioned this morning about the dissociated Arabic. And I know this approach does not teach our students to effectively use grammar in everyday life situations. And I'm not surprised when our colleague Najwa found that 19.6%, I think, if I'm not wrong, of students who enjoyed grammar. So grammar is quite a challenging topic to teach and learn at the same time. So here are a few tips to share with you today. When you are planning a grammar lesson, let's say, for example, you're teaching the noun adjective agreement. This is where we've seen earlier that it is a high frequency error. I find that integrating input-based with output-based tasks in one lesson can be effective for students to engage implicitly in grammar lessons and motivate them. So firstly, I usually start my lesson with giving a listening task. Usually it's very short audio, 2 minutes, not more than that, so I can fit in all the 4 tasks in my lesson. And then after that, I give them a worksheet, comprehension worksheet with multiple choice questions. Students usually find it easy to listen and take answers at the same time. Then I provide them with the listening script to read and correct their answers. I feel in this way, students are given an opportunity to notice and understand the grammatical form and how nouns and adjectives agree in gender, and look at the nominative, accusative, and genitive cases and idafa constructs and so on. I usually use the reading input flooding technique by giving them the chance to notice numerous and abundant examples of the noun and adjective and other phrases as well, relevant. I think Dr. El-Khodairy's book, Arabic Grammar in Context, is an excellent textbook that I use for intermediate and advanced students, but unfortunately, it lacks the listening and speaking orientated tasks. Then after that, I build on the listening, and then I give them a topic to discuss in small groups, so they can use the form in their interactive dialogues. Thus, I help them move from learning grammar at the sentence level to the discourse level. And I listen to them all the time and give my feedback. So students are aware of the errors they commit and then are aware of how to correct them. Then I assign an error identification quiz because I'm teaching virtually. I think all of us are teaching virtually. currently I use Microsoft Teams because I can see the graph and I can evaluate the students' responses and again give them more feedback to learn from their errors. We shouldn't undermine the importance of self-study or homework, but I think we should remember that it should be interactive. That's why I use Flipgrid for this purpose. I'm not sure if you've heard about it, but Flipgrid is a free online video discussion platform that allows me to create short video assignments and share it with my students. My students also can create a diary and they can share it with me or other students, and they can record up to 10 minutes a grammar topic they've just learned or reflect on its use and challenges and so on. So by and large, I found that balancing and sequencing the 4 domains of language learning, reading, listening, and speaking, writing in my lesson provides an effective and an engaging learning as long as I can adhere to my task timings. If I can't fit in all tasks in one lesson, then I use flipped learning, what I assign on Blackboard. This is what we use at UCLan. One of the tasks or 2 tasks for students to prepare before coming to class. Right, coming to the end of our presentation, I'd like to sum up what we've done so far. We presented the statistical analysis of the common grammatical errors that 33 undergrad students made in their oral test. We used Lanxbox for this purpose by entering keywords. However, we think that further studies are needed in order to identify keyword co-occurrence, and this is what my colleague Marwa was speaking earlier about, where we experienced a lack of Arabic software programs that would have enabled us to use correlation measures between words to analyze the frequent grammatical errors often made by students, like verb, subject, noun, adjective, agreements, and so on. We feel that our study is limited to a small group of non-native speakers of Arabic, and our findings are still a hypothesis yet to be tested on a bigger corpus. Thank you very much for listening, and now I'll open the floor for questions. Thank you.
شكرا يا سعدية، شكرا يا مروة، شكرا عواشة من جامعة University of Central Lancashire. Yes, we are aware of time. I might quickly comment, not ask a question in the meantime. I think there are programs that can deal with this issue of reversed word order that you mentioned when you spoke about your corpus. And I don't know if you have tried the Sketch engine, because it has more or less the same tools, but even more advanced tools, but also deals with this issue of word order, because I have experienced more or less the same issue when I started using Corbra before, but now there are other ones that are more advanced if you wanted to try them. I don't know if you are more or less have to stick to what you have already have, but you could try this one. I would suggest only.
I will try Sketch engine. Thank you for suggesting it.
Thank you so much. I think we have some questions. We'll take 1 or 2 of them now. So Abla is asking, do you encourage using dedicated grammar classes for advanced levels of Arabic? We normally teach all grammatical rules early in level 1.
Right. Okay. Let me answer this question. Well, I think what I was trying to demonstrate is that we can't teach grammar, but integrated in the 4 tasks, because our students always find grammar as a topic on its own very challenging. So I think it goes on with first year, second year, third year, when they get used, especially in the first year, they have to get used first to the grammatical names, adverbs, and so on. So they can move on in their second year and third year to learn more about more complex rules and patterns in grammar. And I hope that I answered your question, Abla.
Thank you, Saadia. There is another quick question for you in particular. So could you kindly share an example of how you use Flipgrid? Thank you.
Yes, I was thinking of it, but because I thought it's only a 20 minutes presentation, I wouldn't have time to share what I'm doing. but I'm happy to email it to you if you want to. If you can provide your emails, then I can share the samples that I've done with students.
Yes, شكرا يا عبلة، شكرا شكرا عبلة طبعا على السؤال، وشكرا سعدية ومروة من جديد، وأيضا let me say the name right، عواشة. شكرا جزيلا.